What did I, excuse me, no. No, out of the courtroom. Out of the courtroom.
This arrogant teenage killer murdered 2 innocent people. Then, while on the run from police, he recorded a rap video standing next to his own wanted poster, holding a gun and bragging about the murders in his lyrics. And as if that weren't enough, he posted the video with a single caption, "Federalis can't hold me." It was one of the most repugnant displays of arrogance in American crime history. If you enjoy true crime stories like this, subscribe now and stay with me.
You're still alive. You still can improve yourself. Your family can still visit you.
He opened the door and shot him.
I think it was part of a career move that went wrong.
And seeing you literally dancing on Ethan's grave.
In a courtroom, silence is never absolute. It always carries weight. Held breaths, footsteps echoing across the cold floor, the nervous rustle of papers in the hands of those waiting for justice or acquittal. But that day, the silence was broken by something unexpected: laughter. A misplaced, insolent, almost mocking laugh. A laugh that didn't belong in a room where one name echoed heavily through the air: Ethan Walker, 21 years old, murdered inside his own home. The young man at the defense table looked far too comfortable for someone accused of murder. Relaxed shoulders, a defiant stare. No tears, no remorse. To him, the courtroom felt like just another stage. And in that moment, he truly believed nothing there could touch him. His name was Taymor McIntyre. To the internet, he was already something else: Tay-K. A teenage rapper who mistook attention for power, fame for immunity. A kid who believed likes, streams, and followers were stronger than evidence, witnesses, and juries. But this story doesn't begin in the courtroom. It starts much earlier, on an ordinary night that ended in tragedy. It was July 26, 2016, in Mansfield, Texas. One of those hot summer nights when young adults gather, never imagining their lives are about to be split into before and after. Ethan Walker was at home with friends. No illegal party, no drugs, no hidden cash. Just young people living their normal lives. Until the door was forced open. Masked teenagers stormed the house with guns, shouting commands. Everyone on the ground. This wasn't random violence. It was a plan. A robbery carefully put together by a group convinced there were drugs and money inside. That information was wrong. But their belief was enough to turn frustration into violence. When they realized there was nothing to steal, the mood shifted. Tension turned into rage. And rage found a gun. Ethan was shot. He collapsed on the floor of his own home, bleeding, not understanding why.
Ethan Walker sat on the floor with his back against a bed with his hands up in the air in a vulnerable, defenseless position. Lotharian Merritt shot him through the heart. Didn't shoot him in the hand, didn't shoot him in the foot, didn't fire off a warning shot to scare him. He shot him center mass. Killed him. That is intentional.
Another friend was also hit, but survived. Ethan didn't. He died over something that never existed. No money, no drugs, no reason, just a body on the floor and family destroyed. Among those who helped plan that robbery was Tay-K, just 16 years old at the time. Police moved quickly. The group was identified. Arrests followed. Tay-K was charged with murder and aggravated robbery. Because he was a minor, he was placed on house arrest with an ankle monitor while awaiting trial. That was the moment when things still could have gone differently.
I seen 4 people come in with guns and masks and hoodies, and then they came straight into my room. Everybody left the room, and then one guy was at the front of my room in the doorway, and I was right in front of the bed, like pretty much point blank range. And he sat there and hesitated for about 2 minutes with one hand, and when he grabbed it with 2 hands, that's when I knew he was going to pull the trigger.
But arrogance doesn't coexist with patience. While Ethan's family was planning a funeral, Tay-K was at home, online, feeding on attention. No remorse, no silence, no understanding of the weight of what he'd done. To him, justice was just a delay, an inconvenience. Months passed. Then, in March 2017, he decided he was done waiting. He posted on Twitter, "F house arrest." He grabbed a pair of scissors, cut off the ankle monitor, walked out the door as if he were canceling a streaming subscription. He convinced another teenager under similar restrictions to do the same. In minutes, 2 defendants accused of violent crimes were on the run by choice. Now, beyond being a murder suspect, Tay-K was a fugitive. With no money and no way to work, he did what he already knew how to do. He went back to robbing. That's how his path crossed with Mark Saldivar, 23 years old. a photographer, a working man, a young guy trying to build a career with a camera and hope. Mark received a message on Instagram. A supposed client wanted to hire him for a photo shoot. Legit work. Honest money. On April 23, 2017, Mark went to a Chick-fil-A parking lot in San Antonio. He got into the car believing he was starting just another workday. Within seconds, guns appeared. He was robbed, beaten, humiliated. They tried to drive off with his camera, his livelihood. Desperate, Mark fought back. He climbed onto the hood of the car, trying to stop them from taking everything he had. That's when the shot came. Cold, direct, fatal. Mark died right there, on the asphalt, without knowing who those people were, without understanding why an ordinary day ended that way. 2 young men dead, 2 families destroyed. And where was Tay-K? On the run, but not in silence. Hiding in New Jersey, he started doing exactly what he believed made him untouchable, creating content. He recorded a song called The Race, a raw account of his own escape, lyrics mocking the police, mocking the justice system, mocking the very idea of consequences. And then he did something that changed everything. In the video, Tay-K appears holding a gun, smiling, and in a moment that shocked the entire country, he poses next to his own wanted poster for murder. Like it was an achievement, like he was winning a game. When he posted the video, he captioned it, "The feds can't hold me back." Less than 24 hours later, he was arrested. The internet made him famous, but also gave him away. And what he didn't know, what no one in that courtroom seemed to fully grasp at the time, was that the song, the video, the laughter would not protect him. They would become his sentence. What looked like a victory turned into a perfect trap. While The Race exploded on the music charts, investigators were preparing something Tay-K never imagined, turning his own arrogance into the most devastating evidence at trial. When Tay-K was captured in New Jersey, there was no cinematic chase, no shootout. None was needed. He had done the work for them. Every lyric, every frame of the video, every arrogant post acted like a beacon pointing directly to him. Less than 24 hours after telling the world that the feds couldn't hold him, the door was kicked in. The race ended right there. But what came next was something even seasoned investigators couldn't have predicted. As Tay-K was being handcuffed, The Race began its own journey, free, viral, unstoppable. The video spread like wildfire. Thousands of views became millions. Millions became hundreds of millions. The song entered the Billboard Hot 100. Major artists released remixes. The name Tay-K began circulating in the same spaces as established rap stars. He was 17 years old, and he was in jail. Outside, teenagers sang his song like an anthem. Inside, 2 families struggled to understand how the man accused of killing their sons was becoming a cultural phenomenon. For Ethan Walker's parents, every lyric felt like an insult. Every play was another wound. They didn't hear art. They heard blood turned into entertainment. They watched their son's name fade away while his killer gained followers, deals, and relevance.
Every time we look up, it seems like we're seeing news about the song, seeing praise about the song, and seeing you literally dancing on Ethan's grave. But you've gotten enough attention.
I think it was part of a career move that went wrong. You're still here. You're still here. My son is gone. He's a box of ashes sitting in my living room. He's gone.
The defense leaned heavily on that exact point. It's just art. That was the argument. That the music wasn't a confession. That the video was performance. That the character Tay-K wasn't the same young man sitting at the defense table.
His role in this is certainly described by several people, but what was his role? Number one, Taymor never touched, handled, loaded, cleaned, carried a firearm either before this incident that day, during the incident that day, or after the incident that day. There is not a scintilla of evidence that he did that. Taymor didn't anticipate this was going to happen. None of these girls anticipated this was going to happen.
During the trial for the murder of Ethan Walker, the details. Witnesses described the moment armed men stormed into the home. The panic, the chaos, the gunshot. Survivors recalled the sharp crack of the shot, the body hitting the floor, and the silence that followed. The prosecution made its position clear. Even if Tay-K hadn't pulled the trigger, he helped plan the robbery. He entered the house armed. He took part in the intimidation. Under the law, that was enough. The jury agreed. In July 2019, Tay-K was found guilty of murder and aggravated robbery. The sentence was severe, 55 years in prison. A teenager condemned to spend most of his life behind bars.
Jury reached a verdict, is that correct?
Yes.
Is this on all of the charges?
Yes.
You're presented to Rachel. I'll read it. You may be seated. Count one. We, the jury, find the defendant, Taymor McIntyre, guilty of the lesser included offense of murder. Madam Full, is this your verdict?
Yes.
And was it unanimous?
Yes.
As to count two, we, the jury, find the defendant, Taymor McIntyre, guilty of the offense of aggravated robbery as charged in count two of the indictment. Is this your verdict?
Yes.
For many, that would have been the end of the story. But it wasn't, because Ethan wasn't the only victim. While he awaited sentencing for the first murder, prosecutors were already preparing another case, one even harder to ignore. The murder of Mark Saldivar, the photographer killed while trying to protect his livelihood. Unlike the Ethan case, where the defense tried to blur responsibility, the Mark Saldivar case was direct, brutal, visual. There were witnesses. There was context. There was flight. And there was a clear timeline linking the crime to Tay-K's status as a fugitive. More than that, there was the music. In 2025, when Tay-K was finally brought to trial for the murder of Mark Saldivar, the prosecution did something that completely changed the atmosphere in the courtroom. They pressed play. The race echoed through the room, not as a hit song, but as evidence. Jurors watched the defendant smiling beside his own murder-wanted poster. They heard lyrics about running from police. They saw the gun. They saw the mockery. That video created a challenge the system was now being shown inside the system, under oath, with every frame dissected. It was no longer marketing. It was evidence.
You're still alive. You still can improve yourself. Your family can still visit you. But the complainant in this case is deceased. And you need to internalize that the complainant in this case is deceased. Mr. McIntyre, I want you to know that I listened to all of the evidence in punishment and thought about whether or not your sentence should be stacked. I don't know where your mom is, don't know where your father is. I know that you had a rough childhood. Found you guilty of murder. Your punishment is to be assessed at 80 years in the prison. The court will give you credit for any time served. There's a $0 fine. And with regards to the other offense, State, are you requesting that to be stacked?
Yes, we are, Your Honor.
All right.
Your Honor.
And I'm assuming you're against that, is that correct?
We are, Your Honor. We would just like to briefly, for the record, maintain that our argument would be that to run consecutively an 80-year sentence on top of 50.
Just one moment, counsel.
The sentence was announced, 80 years in prison. Added to the previous 55 years, Tay-K received a total of 135 years, a sentence that, in practice, meant dying behind bars. The boy who once laughed in court now understood the true weight of his choices. With the sentence finalized, only one question remained. How did a teenager manage to turn real crimes into global entertainment? And what does that say about all of us? As the court closed its files and prison doors shut behind Tay-K, something paradoxical continued to happen outside. His name didn't fade away. It grew louder, more discussed, more streamed. Justice had done its part, but culture was still applauding. The race wasn't just a song. It became a symbol of an era. But Tay-K wasn't the only one who thought he was a legend in the courtroom. Standing before the judge, next was Nicholas Lindsay. He was 16 years old, and he believed, with the arrogant certainty of someone who had never faced real consequences, that his age made him untouchable. Nicholas Lindsay didn't see himself as a killer. He saw himself as a scared kid, an ordinary teenager walking the streets of St. Petersburg, Florida, on an ordinary night. But the problem with decisions made in seconds is that they don't ask how old you are before destroying everything. On the night of February 21st, 2011, around 10:30 p.m., a simple call came into 911. a citizen reported something that sounded almost routine. A young man wearing a dark hoodie, holding a brick, jumping fences, and prowling around homes near Tropicana Field. To most people, it would have sounded like just another minor call. To police, it suggested a possible burglary in progress. For the Crawford family, that phone call would become the final chapter of an entire life. Officer David Crawford, 46 years old, with more than 2 decades on the force, respected by his colleagues, and known for his calm approach, was one of the first officers to respond. He didn't arrive with sirens blaring. He didn't shout commands. He did what he had always done, parked his patrol car, stepped out, and approached to ask questions. Nothing about the encounter suggested a confrontation. Nothing suggested death. Nicholas Lindsay matched the description. When he saw the officer, he stopped. He turned around. For a brief second, everything hung in the balance, that moment when a choice still exists. When raising your hands, running, or speaking are still options. Nicholas chose the only option that cannot be undone. He pulled out a gun and fired. It wasn't an accidental discharge. It wasn't a single shot. It was multiple close-range shots straight into Officer Crawford's chest. Police radios erupted with frantic voices. Shots fired. Officer down. Even mortally wounded, Crawford tried to respond. He drew his weapon. Fired. Missed. Nicholas ran. When Officer Donald Ziegler arrived seconds later, he found Crawford collapsed beside his patrol car, losing blood rapidly. He was rushed to Bayfront Medical Center, but there was no miracle. David Crawford was pronounced dead shortly afterward. A veteran police officer was dead, and a teenager was on the run. The city went into maximum alert. More than 200 officers joined the manhunt. Helicopters sliced through the sky. K-9 units searched alleys, backyards, vacant lots. Roadblocks appeared across the area. The message was unmistakable. Someone had crossed the most sacred line in law enforcement. Meanwhile, Nicholas wasn't just running from the police. He was running from reality. In a desperate attempt, he threw the murder weapon into a creek, believing that erasing evidence could erase consequences. It couldn't. The next morning, the suspect's description was released. Dark hoodie, teenage male, near Tropicana Field. When Deneen Sweat, Nicholas's mother, heard the report, something inside her froze. Every detail fit too perfectly. She didn't need the police to know. She went to her son, looked him in the eyes. Nicholas broke down. He cried. He shook. There was no lie left that could hold. His father, Nicholas Lindsay Sr., was there too. Both parents understood exactly what the confession meant. Even so, they made the most painful decision a parent can make. They turned in their own son. When police arrived, Nicholas didn't resist. He didn't scream. He didn't try to run. He lowered his head, like someone who finally understood the game was over. He was taken to the Juvenile Assessment Center, held without bond. In the interrogation room, with his parents beside him, everything was recorded on video. Nicholas's voice trembled. He repeated the same word over and over, scared.
I'm telling y'all not to do it. Who did it?
Lindsay's father and mother talk to him for 30 minutes. They hold him when he breaks down in tears.
It's gonna be okay, son. It's gonna be okay, son.
And they try to get him to come clean.
You got to tell the truth, son. We right here. I was not there.
Lindsay keeps repeating that it wasn't him.
We're trying to help you. This is our point. You need to talk to us. You're doing the right thing right now. You're owning up to your responsibility. It's okay, son. This is the price we pay for the things we do.
He said he panicked, that he didn't want to die, that he didn't want to go to prison. But there was one detail impossible to ignore. He fired until the gun was empty. The confession matched everything. The security footage, the footprints, the ballistics. Every piece of evidence pushed the case in a single direction. His mother cried, aware that, in that moment, she was losing her son forever, but knowing there was no other path. Being young does not erase what was done. Being afraid does not bring anyone back. Shortly afterward, a grand jury formalized the charge, first-degree murder of an on-duty police officer. Nicholas would be tried as an adult. The defense tried to change the narrative, a scared boy, a mistake, a moment of panic. The prosecution responded with cold facts, 5 precise shots at close range. This is not panic. This is decision. As the case moved forward, something began to trouble those following it. In his first court appearances, Nicholas smiled. A brief smile. Nervous to some, provocative to others. To the family of David Crawford, it was a blow almost as violent as the shots that night. They did not see nervousness. They saw contempt. Nicholas still seemed to believe his age would protect him, that somehow this would end with a light punishment, a quick second chance, he's just a kid. But the courtroom does not run on illusions. And when the trial began, it became clear that that smile would not survive the weight of the truth that was about to fall on him. The courtroom is not a place of redemption, is a place of mirrors. Everything done outside returns amplified, stripped of excuses, exposed under cold light. And when Nicholas Lindsay walked through those doors in handcuffs, there was still something about him that did not belong there: carelessness. On the other side of a room sat the people who should never have been there. David Crawford's widow, his daughter, fellow officers in absolute silence, rows of blue uniforms that seemed to form an invisible wall between the past and what was still to come. Nicholas entered with a neutral face, looked around, sat down, and smiled. It was not a wide smile. It was not open laughter. It was brief, almost automatic. A strange reflex, as if the body had not yet understood what the mind tried to deny. To some, it was nervousness. To others, provocation. To the Crawford family, it was an affront impossible to forget. The defense clung to the only card left: age. He was 16 years old. He was scared. He panicked. They tried to paint the picture of a boy cornered by a situation that spiraled out of control. They said Nicholas believed the gun was jammed, that he did not want to kill, that he only reacted on instinct when he saw the officer move. But the prosecution did not speak of feelings. It spoke of facts. 5 shots, close range, no mistake. The prosecutor did not raise his voice. He did not need to. The evidence spoke for itself. The confession video was played. The courtroom watched Nicholas cry, stutter, say he was afraid. Many looked away. Some jurors cried. But they did not cry for him. They cried for the parents sitting behind, watching their own son destroy himself before an irreversible truth. They cried for a family that, even doing the right thing, would lose everything. The confession was deemed valid. The defense's attempt to claim family pressure collapsed. The judge was direct. The presence of parents does not invalidate the truth when it is spontaneous. And then came the moment no one forgets. Throughout the trial, whenever David Crawford's name was mentioned, the camera turned to the family. Red eyes, shaking hands, raw pain. In contrast, Nicholas maintained that unsettling posture, the faint smile appearing and disappearing, as if he still had not understood that this was not juvenile theater but the end of a road. It was there that Crawford's daughter realized something she would never be able to forgive. While we were shattered, he smiled. To her, there was no nervousness. There was an absence of humanity. The verdict did not come quickly. The jury took the necessary time, weighed down by what it meant to sentence someone so young to life in prison. But the heavier weight was another, allowing the death of a police officer to be reduced to a juvenile mistake. When they returned to the room, the silence was absolute. Guilty. First-degree murder. No immediate reaction. No scream. No explosion. Just a brief freeze on Nicholas's face, as if that word had finally pierced every layer of denial. The sentence came soon after, life in prison without the possibility of parole. In that instant, something changed. The smile disappeared. The boy who entered believing he would leave soon understood, perhaps for the first time, that he would not leave young, nor as an adult. Maybe not at all. His father stood up. He cried uncontrollably. He apologized to the Crawford family, to the police, to the city. He apologized for something that could not be fixed. Nicholas remained seated. In 2005, the United States Supreme Court had prohibited the death penalty for minors under 18. That saved Nicholas's life, but it did not save his future. The maximum mercy the law could offer had already been given. Even so, the story did not end there. Years later, new judicial decisions changed the understanding of life sentences for juveniles. Courts began to require reviews, considering maturity, background, potential for change. Nicholas's case returned to the table. In 2017, he appeared again before a judge. He was no longer a boy. He was a man shaped by concrete, prison routine, and lost time. His request was simple, a reduction of the sentence to 40 years. The judge was even simpler. Denied. The new sentence maintained life imprisonment with the possibility of review after 25 years, in 2036. Until then, Nicholas would spend more than half his life behind bars. He would be 61 years old when, and if, someone decided he deserved another chance. As he left the hearing, while the Crawford family maintained the composure learned by force, Nicholas smiled again. A quick smile, almost imperceptible. But now no one was confused anymore. That was not confidence. It was emptiness. He bought the gun illegally days earlier for $140. He had a history of juvenile offenses, thefts, truancy. Chances were not lacking. Wrong choices were. David Crawford did not get a second chance. His daughter did not get another childhood. His wife did not get a goodbye. And the court made it clear that was not a failure of the system. It was the direct consequence of decisions made by someone who thought age was a shield. Time passes differently inside a prison. Days are not marked by holidays, birthdays, or plans for the future. They are marked by counts, iron doors, repetitive routines, and the constant weight of a question that never goes away. What if I had done it differently? For Nicholas Lindsay, time began to distort on that February night in 2011. Everything that came after, trials, sentences, appeals, was only the inevitable extension of a single moment of choice. He was 16 years old, but the trigger did not pull itself. For years, the case divided opinions. For some, Nicholas was just another example of a system that fails vulnerable youth, pushed into crime by hostile environments, lack of structure, and impulsive decisions typical of adolescence. For others, he was proof that youth cannot be used as a shield when a life is consciously taken. And perhaps the truth lies exactly in the middle of that abyss. Yes, an adolescent brain is still developing. Yes, impulsivity and fear are part of that stage of life. But it is also true that Nicholas bought an illegal gun days earlier. It is also true that he chose to walk armed that night. And it is undeniable that when confronted by a police officer who was simply doing his job, he decided to shoot, not once, not twice, but until the gun was empty. This was not an accident. It was a succession of choices. The court understood that. And over the years, it made clear that the goal of the sentence was not revenge, but accountability. When the Supreme Court changed its understanding of life sentences for juveniles, Nicholas gained something rare, a future possibility of review. But possibility is not a promise. In 2036, if nothing changes, he will be 61 years old when someone decides whether the boy who killed a police officer still lives inside the man who spent decades incarcerated. Until then, every day is a silent reminder that the time passing for him does not return to anyone else. Meanwhile, outside those walls, the world moved on without David Crawford. His daughter grew up without her father. Every achievement, every hardship, every important moment happened with a permanent absence. His wife learned to live with an empty chair and a routine that never returned to normal. His fellow officers carry not only the loss of a friend, but the constant reminder that that encounter could have been any one of them. None of this can be reviewed. None of this can be reduced. When Nicholas smiled in court, many saw it as definitive proof of his lack of remorse. Others insist it was nervousness, immaturity, a defense mechanism. But in the end, the interpretation hardly matters. Because the impact of that smile was real. It became the symbol of a profound disconnect between what was done and what was lost. Justice, in this case, did not fail. It simply did something that is rarely comfortable. It treated a teenager as someone capable of causing irreparable harm. And perhaps that is what disturbs people the most. We like to believe that youth means automatic redemption. That mistakes made early can always be erased by time. But the truth is that some decisions do not allow simple restarts. Some choices cross an invisible line, and once past it, there is no way back. Nicholas Lindsay was not convicted only for killing a police officer. He was convicted for believing he could escape the consequences, for thinking fear would justify everything, for imagining that his age would be enough to soften the weight of an extreme act. He was wrong. The system did not destroy his life. He handed it over, second by second, that night. And now remains the question that no judge, jury, or sentence can fully answer. Only you. Does a teenager who consciously takes a life deserve a second chance?